What's up, Internet? It's your Soul here, and just had a very interesting link sent to me by TruthForce on Steemit, so thanks for that. And it appears to show some very important information related to YouTube. You could say censorship, ultimately, and to me it feels like censorship, and I'll explain why. So, unfortunately, since this information went public, YouTube has actually removed the information from web pages that was hidden within web pages, which was very useful. And basically, that information was a collection of parameters which shows their own internal indexing and calculation of each video based on scoring. And in this case, there were various ones, which some of which we don't know exactly how they work or what they were for, but the general gist of it is that they were rating videos for their kind of family friendliness and also other parameters, even down to camera work and editing and other kind of issues related to the general community response to each video. And then the score for each video would be used to calculate what YouTube then did with that video within its own internal system, such as does it get boosted up or does it get dropped down the rankings? Does it get promoted here or there? Does it get suggested to people as a new video to watch? That kind of thing. So that was called P-score, and there are other scores in there as well. And if we scroll through this page, which is a blog which was written in relation to all this information, you can see it goes over some of the info here. They've now taken that out, as I said, since this has gone public. There's some very interesting points in here that they highlight, such as that the rankings were given on a per region basis, so your video score in one part of the world would be different to its score somewhere else in the world. And they also show that the top 200 performing channels that they found with P-scores of over 800 or top P-scores basically were generally all mainstream TV kind of shows or well-known celebrities. And you can say that makes sense in the sense that they were ranking this based on user engagement and family friendliness and TV kind of editing quality and that kind of thing, which these shows are going to have. So that does make sense. On the other hand, people are kind of viewing this as being something to complain about in the sense that they previously thought of YouTube as being a kind of level playing field where people could come along and become famous or popular just because of the quality of their content or their presentation or what they're talking about. And that now isn't really the case at all. It's based on other factors. It's a very, challenging subject to address, and I can understand Google's difficulty, the many sort of difficulties they face in resolving this problem and these equations, because you're always going to annoy someone in reality, probably. However, one way that they could not annoy people would be to be transparent about how the system is designed, and they have never done that ever. They've always been, I would say, anti-human. I would go as far as to say anti-human in the sense that I mean, for example, if you watch Google and the World Brain, which is a good documentary, it shows how from the very beginning Google was intending to essentially create the world's most powerful artificial intelligence system. It wasn't really ever about just making money through advertising. And when you think of it from that perspective, it makes sense how they will, for example, as they've done to me and many other people, sandbox comments. So you write a comment, it looks like everyone else has seen it. They haven't seen it, only you've seen it, and they haven't informed you that they've blocked it. So that doesn't give you the opportunity to complain. It doesn't give you the opportunity to change your behavior, to understand why they have a problem with you. And that to me is highly informative because it tells me that their reason for blocking these comments, and as we're seeing here, reducing the reach of certain videos, has nothing really to do with creating a better community or even making money. Because ultimately, if their aim is to have a certain format of video for advertisers that's advertiser friendly, then you could say that the more variety of videos they have that fit into that category, that meet those standards, the better for YouTube, because more advertisers will come on board knowing that their own niche is going to be covered with videos. They've got a bigger spectrum of markets and viewers to target. For example, if I want to sell a certain type of apple, let's say, and I know that there are many people on YouTube who are making high quality content about apples, then I know that it would be good for me to come and probably target people through that system, because there's going to be people already interested in apples and they can now see my message about apples. So, however, if there aren't a high number of quality producers producing content about apples, then I can't really do that, or it's going to be more challenging for me to figure out how to market on YouTube. So it's in YouTube's interest from that perspective financially to inform content creators about the rules of YouTube and its marketing processes in order for them to maximize their earnings and also to maximize the user base and the attractiveness for advertisers. This is just simple. Simple business logic. It's not difficult to understand, and yet that isn't what they've done, and they've never done that. What they have been doing is claiming that they're making decisions for advertisers to make their site advertiser friendly, whilst at the same time their actual actions show that that isn't really the case. And in fact, I would say that this is really what people are complaining about. What they're actually demonstrating is huge biases. And in this case, as people have pointed out, the biases appear to be towards mainstream TV. So I'm just going to show you here how this is about more than just corporate agreements and focusing people on mainstream TV. For example, if you search for my username on Steam, or my name, You're at Soul online, you'll see, oh, my videos pop up. Except you'll notice here that these are not videos from my channel. These are videos from the Universe podcast, which I appeared on. Now, a few months ago, that wasn't the case. You could find my videos from my channel. So you can see this one here is from me, but it's on 3Speak. It's not on YouTube. So they've basically removed I don't know when they did this, a few weeks or months ago, maybe. I wasn't really checking it that often. At some point, Google has removed all of my videos from my channel from its mainstream search results. They haven't informed me of that. They haven't said, hey, by the way, we're blocking you because you've broken one of our rules. Now, on top of that, you may notice there's no adverts on this page at all. Anyway, let's see if I just search for Apple, videos about Apple. No adverts on this page, right? So I don't have there's no advertisers that could be influencing Google's decision to not list my videos in these results. All of these videos are from other sites. They're either from 3Speak or from other sites here and there. That none of them are my own videos on YouTube. They're just not visible. So that in itself destroys their claim. And just to make it clear to you, I've made videos on this before, but just to make it clear to you, I'll scroll through and you'll see that there aren't any of my videos here. You might find my channel listed, and these are links from my own website, which have my videos embedded in them, but the actual links to YouTube are not there. So this to me is a telltale sign that they've marked my channel for restriction, but they've done it in a way that's influencing Google's main algorithms as well, not just YouTube. And so this basically tells me that A, their system isn't very intelligently set up, but also B, they literally marked me and my information for restriction for some reason. But it hasn't extended. I haven't, let's say I haven't become so well known in the public mind that they've manually reviewed it and removed all of my content. Maybe that would be too obvious anyway. I don't know. I mean, I'm just hypothesizing. But what I do know is my content is being restricted, and I don't generally swear. In fact, I can't remember ever putting any violence in my videos. Maybe there's some news reports of rioting or something like that. But generally speaking, I don't put anything in those videos which most people would consider to be in any way violent, sexual, or anything like that. So from my perspective, it can only really be because I've said something that triggers their monitoring systems, whether it be because I'm talking about conspiracies and crimes that they're trying to block out through government intervention or just through their own interests, or for some other reason. Maybe because I actually talk about Google and Facebook and their own practices quite a lot. Maybe they're just trying to limit the damage that I do through talking about them. But one way or another, they are limiting my reach. So I haven't been able to actually go in and check my P-scores and so on because they removed that information very quickly after this information became public. But you can read this document here that's on this topic, which I'll leave a link in the description for, which gives an overview of this. And there's also a couple of good videos online. There's this one. This is the main one, I think, the original one. 132,000 views at this point, according to Google, which may not even be accurate. But they talk a lot about how they figured this out and what they did with it, and the fact that having a video with this kind of computer game imagery of people shooting each other and that kind of thing is enough to get your video down ranked and maybe not demonetized, but basically you will not be seen by as many people as you would have been if you hadn't put that content in there. I've got this tweet here from the YouTube team, which they've included in their report, which says, just wanted to clarify that our recommendations and search and discovery systems do not look at a video's monetization status, so a yellow icon wouldn't limit the video recommendations. And they're making the point in this report that that isn't a lie. But what they're not being clear about, what YouTube are not saying, is that really they're telling a half-truth in that although they don't probably look at the monetization value when it comes to promoting or limiting, throttling a video, they do look at these other parameters which probably are more powerful and significant than monetization. I would imagine to some extent monetization comes from these values. So it is disingenuous what they said there. It is misrepresenting the truth, I would say. So yeah, highly dubious, highly dodgy, and my main message here is something which I've known for a long time, and people who are talking about political topics and subjects which have the power to change the world in many cases, let's say, that go against the mainstream narrative being pushed through mainstream television and governments and so on, is that YouTube is not a platform for spreading that kind of information. It's simply a mechanism for limiting the reach of that kind of information, if anything else. And if you've become so big that they can't completely block you out, as they try to do to me and many other people, or in some cases they just delete the channels, then you will be reach restricted and you won't be gaining as much exposure as you could have been. And you're in a kind of conundrum because every time you put a video on YouTube, you help YouTube grow its market and its audience. However, if you don't put your video on YouTube, then you're missing out on a large audience. So it's really that kind of paradigm of do you go with the herd or not go with the herd? And, you know, the wise people usually will say, well, it's usually better to not go with the herd. But in this case, yes, generally speaking, we should be looking to alternative video platforms for a long list of different reasons, especially ones that don't censor, control, and that also reward fairly, of which there are several, 3Speak Online being one interesting one that I use. However, if you're putting out content which is intended to reach the herd, to help them wake up and maybe learn something that they're not going to be told within that controlled environment, then you basically have little choice but to try to reach them through YouTube or wherever it is they are. So the best we can do in that situation perhaps is to heavily focus on revealing the situation and the truth of all of this to YouTube users and exposing it and never letting it go away, so that just through pure brute force this information gets spread from person to person. If you know that when you go to use YouTube you're not seeing a true representation of what people actually want you to see or the content that's available on a certain subject, what you're actually seeing is a heavily filtered version of reality, using parameters and methods and techniques which you have no way of really fully knowing the details of or who's made those decisions, then you would at least be in a position to understand that you should not be basing your view of the world on YouTube or what comes through YouTube or Google for that matter. But people often make the mistake of thinking that these kinds of problems are a problem with the internet in general and that therefore you shouldn't trust the internet for information. I completely disagree with that, because the internet is not Google and YouTube. The internet is a protocol, ultimately, a system which anybody can participate in. And, you know, yes, governments will block out certain people so you just can't hear them no matter what you do. But generally speaking, as long as you use multiple sources online that aren't corporate controlled as best as possible, or at least mix in a variety of different kinds of sources, you're going to be able to get different viewpoints and ideally find information that isn't being censored or that these companies and control systems aren't censoring. To do that, you need to really be using search engines that aren't controlled by Google or Bing or any of these companies. And that's one of the major problems we have with the internet at the moment. There are search engines such as DuckDuckGo and other ones which claim to be, you know, unfiltered and respectful of privacy and that kind of thing. I don't have any evidence that they aren't, so for the moment I use them and I recommend people do use them. But their search system is not as advanced as Google, and so often I will find that I search for something on there, and then if I don't find what I'm looking for, I then go and search for Google and I find it straight away. So they're not as advanced as Google, but they're fairer than Google. So my suggestion is to start off with DuckDuckGo or a site like that and then move on to something like Google if you don't find what you're looking for. we need to basically be moving away from these mainstream systems if we're going to actually make the use of the internet in a way that's optimal and fair. And I would suggest that really the way that Google is filtering information is actually hampering humanity's evolution. But not just that, they're doing it in a biased and unfair way. If you think about North Korea, for example, they apparently have really no access to the outside internet. They might have just a few websites set up by the government to praise their dictator, as I understand it, and that's about it. If we look at the West and the American systems, people would look at the two and compare them to North Korea and laugh and say, well, Google is in no way comparable to North Korea. They allow us access to so much information. It's not like they're really hugely censoring us. But the problem is we don't know how much they're censoring us. And there's a huge amount of information on the internet, and they only have to really filter out 5% of it for it to be a huge problem. And yet most people would never even know. So, and on top of that, guess who does get to look at all the information they're censoring out? Well, they do, don't they? So, if they're not only maybe it may be the case that they're filtering out evidence of crimes that their controllers don't want you to know about because they're involved with them, let's say, for example, but they also can be sourcing powerful information that actually, maybe about technology even, the kinds of things they're interested in. People have put up on the internet for the benefit of the whole world, to help free the world, to help make the world a great place. They then filter that out and take it and use it for themselves. And perhaps in extreme cases, government agents go and speak to the people who put the information up in the first place. And now they've got a massive monopoly on information. And that's really what this is about. And I think if you go and listen to military sources over the last few decades from America, you'll hear them openly in some cases talking about full spectrum dominance. They literally want full spectrum dominance of the internet and therefore also basically the world. And that's not a minor phrase, is it? It's not like a hobby. Full spectrum dominance means you have the capacity to determine what happens on the internet, period, everywhere. And if you've got that, then that means you have the capacity to limit access to information, to take information, and so on. And I would say that's what we're seeing happening through YouTube and Google and Facebook and other sites as well. Behind the scenes, it's been well documented by people like Edward Snowden and others, whistleblowers from within that system, that they had long given control of their servers to governments for these kinds of purposes, basically. So just bear that in mind, and please do look around to try to reassess what you think is true based on what you've seen on the internet, whether or not it came via Google and Facebook and so on, and also reassess your habits online, your choices. Go and find other platforms which don't do this to you, that actually have your interests at heart and that value free speech and respect, because you can't make the best decisions when you're seeing a filtered version of reality, especially when you aren't the one filtering it. So yeah, I would recommend the Steam blockchain, which is my personal preference for free speech online, being as it is a blockchain which is completely public and transparent. It's managed by individuals around the world. It's not run by a central corporation. There is some centralization, but it's not anywhere near the kind of centralization that you would have in a company like Facebook and Google. There are other independent or smaller sources of social networking apps and search engines and so on, which are also worth looking at. Minds.com is quite interesting. My own site, eureka.org, now runs on the Steam blockchain. It has its own database. It's a hybrid site. It's somewhere in between Minds.com and the Steam blockchain, actually. So yeah, do come and check out these systems. You can get paid from Steam, at least. You can get paid money for posting and commenting, which is amazing. So instead of making a CEO somewhere super rich, you're actually getting paid yourself for using the web and socializing with other people and teaching people and helping them, which is amazing. It's really a game changer in that sense, and not enough people know about it. Don't believe the hype. When you read lots of negative press about Steam, look into it for yourself and join the communities, ask people for help, and you'll get it. And it really is an amazing system. So that's it from me for now. Do go and check out these links and let us know in the comments what you think below. Do go pass this along to other people. If you liked watching this video, if you got something out of it, please give me a thumbs up, an upvote, a re-steam, reblog, subscribe if you're new. And until next time, peace.